The following is a special presentation of ABC News. On Trial, the William Kennedy Smith case. A chronicle of coverage by ABC News of one of the most celebrated court cases of our time.
She began to leave, and at this time she was allegedly attacked.
A charge of rape against a member of America's most prominent family, William Kennedy Smith.
I'm very confident that when this thing is resolved, that I'll be able to stand by my original statement, which was that I didn't commit an offense of any kind.
He and his alleged victim face to face in a Palm Beach, Florida courtroom, each telling their stories in riveting detail.
He pushed my dress up. And he raped me.
Did you at any time forcibly rape?
No, I did not.
Then, a dramatic verdict of not guilty. And finally, the woman whose identity had been so closely guarded, Diane Sawyer's exclusive interview with Patricia Bowman. Here now, ABC News coverage of the William Kennedy Smith case.
In Palm Beach, Florida, police are looking into allegations that a woman was raped over the weekend at the compound owned by the Kennedy family. So far, no suspects have been named. The office of Senator Edward Kennedy says he was at the compound over Easter, but says he has absolutely no involvement in the alleged attack.
Police in Palm Beach, Florida say late today, that a nephew of Senator Edward Kennedy is a suspect in an alleged rape. According to the police, William Kennedy Smith was named by a woman who says she was assaulted at the Kennedy's Florida estate last Saturday.
It appears tonight that Senator Edward Kennedy and his son Patrick are in the clear in the alleged rape that occurred at the Kennedy mansion in Palm Beach, Florida last weekend. Suspicion all along has focused on Senator Kennedy's nephew, William Kennedy Smith. Today, according to a family spokesman, Senator Kennedy was officially notified by Palm Beach authorities that neither he nor son Patrick are targets of the investigation.
Late today, a Palm Beach police officer left Senator Ted Kennedy's Virginia estate without comment. A family spokesman said the senator had cooperated fully in an investigation of rape.
The Palm Beach police official today told Senator Kennedy that neither he nor his son Patrick is a suspect in the investigation.
It was the latest turn in a spectacle unlike the happy family moments of less than a year ago.
No one will be happier when the whole record is out. No one will be.
The record for the moment is this: an alleged rape on the beach beside the Kennedy mansion in Palm Beach. 8 days ago, a woman told police she was sexually assaulted by the senator's nephew, William Kennedy Smith. The woman says they met in this night spot, then went to the Kennedy estate with the senator, his son, Patrick, and Mr. Smith. The report set off alarms for family members and released a swarm of reporters. This woman told the New York Post she'd been at the compound the same night and saw the senator with only his shirt on. The Post said she left in shock. Now she says it was an innocent moment.
It's a long shirt. I did not know if he had anything else on underneath it or not. He could have had shorts on.
In Washington, Mr. Smith attends Georgetown Medical School. He vanished from his apartment, but a former judge and law professor who is his landlord is withholding judgment.
And we have found him a very pleasant, considerate, hardworking, diligent individual.
One report says the Kennedy family feels Smith was not considerate, dropping out of sight and leaving senator and son, a Rhode Island state senator, to face complaints that the family has gotten privileged treatment by police. Writer David Horowitz claims the Kennedys dare society to catch them at indiscretions.
It's getting away with it is a syndrome in the Kennedy family.
There is no truth whatever, to the widely circulated suspicions of immoral conduct that have been leveled at my behavior and hers regarding that evening.
That was 22 years ago in the shadow of Chappaquiddick, where a woman drowned in a car driven by Kennedy. Ultimately, he pled guilty to leaving the scene, preserving his career in the Senate, but creating an image that his wealth and connections saved him. But today, despite the headlines, ordinary people came to his defense.
The Kennedys are being treated unfairly just because of their name.
She began to leave, and at this time she was allegedly attacked. She ran towards the pool area, and at this time was allegedly tackled by a subject known to her as William Smith.
The name of the alleged rapist is Smith. So why is the story that's making national headlines called the Kennedy rape case? And why all the furor over naming the alleged rape victim? If you can name the suspect, why not the alleged victim?
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Women who've been raped are afraid, terrified by what they've already experienced, afraid they may not be believed, afraid of what will happen to them and their relationships with family, friends, co-workers, casual acquaintances, if they are publicly identified as rape victims. For these and related reasons, news media usually refrain from publishing or broadcasting the names of rape victims who do come forward. Usually.
This lady who has been allegedly the victim of a crime, she is news. You're not aware of that?
Much of the attention this case has drawn is due to the identity of the suspect, William Kennedy Smith, that middle name, the key. But this week, for the first time, the name and the photograph of the alleged victim in this case have been made public, first by this supermarket tabloid, The Globe, and then last night by NBC Nightly News. CBS, CNN, and ABC still haven't used the woman's name.
Our position at ABC News is that the person who says she has been raped has already undergone a tremendous emotional and physical trauma, and we think that naming her would add additional trauma to her for probably the rest of her life.
NBC News President Gartner told the Washington Post he used the alleged victim's name in part because he wanted to, quote, remove the stigma attached to rape by treating it like any other crime.
Michael Gartner's my old boss. I agree with his thinking that the way to eventually dissolve the stigma around rape is to talk about it.
Jane Shorer won a Pulitzer Prize last week for her series about a victim of rape, but that victim, Nancy Ziegenmeyer, agreed to the use of her name. But today, the Register published, without permission, the Florida woman's name.
I think the tabloid's publication of the name pretty well mooted the subject.
That's also how the New York Times justified its use of the victim's name. Quote, there's no decision for us to make when the point is moot, Assistant Managing Editor Alan Siegel told the Washington Post.
Those decisions by NBC and the New York Times to publish this woman's name are inexcusable. It's still a very powerful, negative impact on a woman's life to have that published.
One paper that has not named the victim is the New York Post, a tabloid famous for its formula of sex, violence, and behind-closed-doors exclusives.
When society gets enlightened enough to treat the victims of sex crimes as if they were the victim of any kind of crime, then we should follow and can follow and will follow, but we're not there yet.
In West Palm Beach, Florida today, charges filed in a much-publicized case of alleged sexual assault. It's been nearly 6 weeks since a woman visitor to the Kennedy family compound in Palm Beach first told police she had been raped. Today, Florida prosecutors announced that they are charging William Kennedy Smith with second-degree sexual battery.
Smith talked to reporters as he walked to his lawyer's office in Washington after hearing he had been charged.
I'm very sad about the events today, and I'm worried about my family and obviously my future and my friends. But I'm very confident that when this thing is resolved, that I'll be able to stand by my original statement, which was that I didn't commit an offense of any kind.
A 9-page police affidavit said the victim met Smith at this popular nightclub, was introduced to his uncle, Senator Ted Kennedy, and Kennedy's son, Patrick, but that the other 2 men left and Smith asked her for a ride home. At the Kennedy estate, the affidavit said, Smith tackled the victim as she was leaving. It said he called her a bitch as she struggled to avoid his assault. The affidavit said that when police went to the estate to investigate, Senator Kennedy and Smith remained inside the compound, even though the family security manager told officers they were not there. Today in Washington, the senator was asked about the charges against Smith.
And I'm absolutely convinced that when all the facts are out, that he'll be vindicated.
The victim's name was first revealed by the Globe newspaper of Florida, followed by NBC News and the New York Times, setting off a national debate about identifying rape victims. Today, the state charged the Globe with 2 counts of violating state law. The newspaper said it would fight the charges. The victim's lawyer read a note from her saying she did not regret her decision to press charges, but added,
"But had I known that my name was going to be released,
it might very well have dissuaded me from doing what I know in my heart is right.
From ABC News, World News Saturday.
In Palm Beach, William Kennedy Smith surrendered to police this afternoon and was formally charged with sexual battery in connection with an alleged rape at the Kennedy family estate. Smith was booked, fingerprinted, photographed, and then he posted $10,000 bail.
I read the police report and about the events that took place on the night in question. And the version of the events in that report are an outrageous lie.
Smith was accompanied by his mother, Jean Kennedy Smith, who earlier said she thinks someone is trying to ruin her son's life and career when he's trying to help people.
Senator Edward Kennedy has issued a statement tonight in response to suggestions that he attempted to interfere with the police investigation of an alleged rape involving his nephew, William Smith. Senator Kennedy says there is no truth to those suggestions. In his words, as soon as I became aware that the police wished to speak to me, I made arrangements to talk to them.
Edward Kennedy went about his Senate business today amid new questions of whether he left Palm Beach on Easter weekend without talking to police, knowing they were investigating rape charges against his nephew. Documents released by Palm Beach police have also raised the question of whether Kennedy lied publicly about his knowledge of the case. In public statements, the senator has repeatedly denied knowing of the rape accusations until after he returned to Washington.
And the first time I knew that there was an allegation of rape was on Monday afternoon.
But Kennedy's son Patrick told police he and his father heard about the accusation Easter Sunday night. He said it happened in a beachfront conversation with former FBI agent William Barry, a family friend who had talked to police. Investigators asked Patrick, "So your father was there to hear of the allegation of sexual battery?" Patrick responded, "Yes." According to records, police first visited the Kennedy estate at 1:30 p.m. on Easter, but did not raise the issue of sexual assault. They asked to talk to Kennedy and the nephew, William Smith. Barry told the detectives that neither man was there, though police now believe they were. Barry said he would ask Senator Kennedy to call police in an hour. At 2:40, when Kennedy had not called, police phoned the estate. A housekeeper said Barry had taken Senator Kennedy and Smith to the airport. Actually, Kennedy did not leave until the next day. At 3:20 p.m., Barry called police, who said for the first time that they were investigating an alleged sexual attack. According to police, Barry said officers had just missed Kennedy and Smith, but that he would give them the message to call. Barry said he did not mention to the senator that police wanted to talk to him. In a transcript of his statement to police, the senator admitted that he knew of calls from officers about a serious offense. That Easter Sunday night, Kennedy called a prominent Florida lawyer, Marvin Rosen, and later told William Smith to contact Rosen.
The woman who says she was raped by William Kennedy Smith has passed a lie detector test as well as a voice stress analysis test. Smith's attorneys have objected to release of the test results because they're not admissible in court. Polygraph expert Warren Holmes said the woman's test results show that, quote, no deception was indicated. Here in Washington, William Kennedy Smith was greeted with enthusiastic cheers today when he received his diploma from the Georgetown University School of Medicine. The graduation ceremonies were held at the Kennedy Center, named after Smith's late uncle, John F. Kennedy.
There's a gag order in effect in the William Kennedy Smith rape case, but you wouldn't know it by today's news. It may be a matter of the prosecution using the media to find Smith guilty before the trial even begins. 3 women have now added their voices to that of the woman in Palm Beach, Florida, claiming that they too were sexually assaulted by Smith. That they have made the charges is a fact. Whether those charges are true has yet to be determined.
If you turned on your TV or walked past the newsstand, you couldn't avoid them. The sensational new charges against William Kennedy Smith.
The fact is that there are 3 women who say that they've had this problem with him before, and it establishes his character. And I'm surprised.
But wait just a second, Carol. We only have the fact that they've said this.
For William Kennedy Smith, that's a crucial distinction, the one between allegation and fact, and easy to miss when radio, TV, and newsprint are all trumpeting testimony like, quote, he was such a ferocious, almost animal-like look to him, and details like she passed out when he attempted to make her perform oral sex. This is hot stuff, but is it admissible evidence? Law professor Terrence Anderson says it will be only if the allegations of the women from Washington and New York precisely mirror aspects of the attack at the Palm Beach estate allegedly committed by Willie Smith.
In Florida, the court tends to require an almost unique similarity before it admits it. You can't admit evidence of other crimes or bad acts just to show the person's a bad person.
Prosecutor Lash made her filing to qualify these powerful new witnesses public and provided headlines for 2 consecutive days. And that left the news media in a very difficult position.
I don't think the media can ignore what the prosecutor has filed in official documents. At the same time, there isn't any doubt here that in connection with the accused person, Smith, his reputation is suffering tremendous damage.
In West Palm Beach, Florida today, the start of a much-publicized trial. William Smith, the nephew of Senator Edward Kennedy, is accused of raping a woman at his family's Palm Beach estate last Easter weekend.
With his family, William Kennedy Smith arrived at the Palm Beach County Courthouse to assist his attorneys with jury selection.
I'm innocent of the charges, and today the court will begin to try to find 6 people who have an open mind.
Florida requires only 6 jurors in cases not involving the death penalty. Today, prospective jurors were questioned one by one about their feelings toward the Kennedy family.
Any idea where the Kennedys obtained their wealth from?
I think it was bootlegging.
I'm sorry?
I think it was bootlegging. Liquor, I think.
They also were asked about their knowledge and opinions of the case against Smith.
If you had to make a decision now, what kind of a decision would you make on this case?
Right now?
Yeah.
I'd probably vote that he was guilty.
Some legal experts worry about finding a fair jury in a case that has attracted extensive and often sensationalized media coverage, including statements and evidence that may never be allowed in court.
It would be hard to be a reasonably competent person living in the Palm Beach area who hadn't heard a great deal about this case.
In West Palm Beach, Florida today, opening arguments in a case that has focused national attention on the subject of date or acquaintance rape. The trial of William Kennedy Smith began with an important procedural victory for the defense. At issue was Mr. Smith's past. Could it be used against him in this case? The judge said no.
With the jury out of the courtroom, the prosecution argued that 3 other women who claimed Smith sexually attacked them should be allowed to testify. The prosecution's case would be stronger if Smith is shown to have a history of sexual violence.
This is the defendant's plan to meet unescorted young women at some kind of social gathering, to lure them to his house under false pretenses, and once there, to make a violent, swift, sudden attack with absolutely no sexual innuendos beforehand.
The defense argued that the women are not believable, and more important, their testimony is not relevant to this case. Judge Mary Lupo agreed with the defense. With the jury back, both sides made opening statements. Prosecutor Maura Lash said Smith did rape a woman on the lawn of the Kennedy compound.
The defendant pinned her left arm out to her side, and her right arm was pinned between them. She tried to get up, but the defendant forced her back to the ground with his chest. She told him to stop it. She told him no.
The defense claims the woman was emotionally disturbed and fabricated the rape charge after she and Smith had sex willingly.
This is not in any forced way whatsoever. It's a totally consensual act of love between 2 people.
Defense attorneys will call numerous evidence specialists, including a forensic scientist.
What he did is examine the dress to see if it was torn, to see if there were abrasions, to see if there were grass stains, to see if there was any evidence of this violent, forcible act that she claims occurred. And he finds no such evidence at all.
A prosecution witness in the trial of William Kennedy Smith has admitted now that a TV show paid her $40,000 for interviews about the alleged rape last spring.
Why did you give an interview to Current Affair concerning this information?
I believed that my police statement was out already. I'd already given 4 statements to the police, and I didn't feel that it would harm the case in any way.
Were you paid for those interviews by a current affair?
I was compensated, yes.
How much were you paid by a current affair?
$25,000 for the first interview and $15,000 for the second interview.
Excuse me, but there will be no audible response to any of the questions or answers in this courtroom, or it will be cleared.
Ann Mercer told the prosecutor she saw the alleged victim right after the woman claimed to have been raped by William Smith at the Kennedy estate last spring.
She was literally shaking, and she looked messed up. Her hair and her makeup was running, and she was hysterical, crying.
Mercer said she and her boyfriend found the woman at the Kennedy home after the alleged victim called for help. Mercer said she then confronted Smith.
I said to him, how could you do this to my friend?
But under harsh cross-examination by defense attorney Roy Black, who argues a rape never occurred, Mercer admitted to another conversation with Smith that night that was much different in tone.
Did you say to this man, I'm sorry we met under these circumstances?
Yes, I said that.
To the man who's supposedly the rapist, is that right?
Yes.
The man who raped your friend, right?
Yes.
Black also confronted Mercer with her first statement to police, which directly counters the prosecution's allegation that the victim was raped once.
Did you tell the detective that she was raped twice and mention the beach and a room?
Yes, I did say that.
The accuser and the accused met face-to-face today at the William Smith rape trial in West Palm Beach, Florida. The witness was the woman who claimed she was raped by Senator Kennedy's nephew last Easter weekend at the Kennedy family estate.
With her face obscured by the courtroom camera to protect her identity, the alleged victim pointed to William Smith. She said she met him in a Palm Beach bar and thought he was a nice man.
Did he say anything at all to you that indicated suggestive conversation?
Oh no, I've really felt like I could trust him. He was seemed to be an intelligent man, a likable man. We were carrying on a conversation that had, to me, no fearful attitudes. He seemed to be a nice and intelligent man.
Did he introduce you to a person that you identified later as a U.S. Senator?
Yes.
But the situation turned ugly, she said, after she gave Smith a ride to the Kennedy estate, walked with him on the beach, and then turned to leave.
I started up the stairs and was at the top of the steps, and my leg was grabbed. I was afraid.
Do you need a break?
No, I will be all right. He tackled me, and I was on the ground and he was on top of me.
Were you able to see his face at that time?
Yes.
Was the person who was on top of you the defendant, William Smith?
Yes.
What happened once you were on the ground?
He had me on the ground, and I was trying to get out from underneath of him because he was crushing me, and he had my arm, and I was yelling, no, and stop. And I tried to arch my back to get him off of me, and he slammed me back into the ground, and I got, and then he pushed my dress up, and he raped me. And I thought he was gonna kill me.
Did you say anything to him?
Yeah, I said, and I don't know why I said the name, I said, Michael, you raped me, and leave me alone.
After finally breaking free, the woman said she ran into the house and tried to hide between two kitchen counters.
Why did you stay in the house at that time?
I was a mess. I couldn't... I've never been raped. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do.
Shortly thereafter, she said she confronted William Smith.
And he said, I didn't rape you. And I said that I called my friends and that we were going to call the police. And he said, well, you shouldn't have done that. Nobody's going to believe you.
How did you feel when he told you that no one would believe you?
I got extremely frightened again.
On Monday, the defense attorney had told the jury that the woman and Smith had sex voluntarily, what he described as an act of love.
Did you feel this was an act of love?
Oh, God, no. It's an act of violence.
In cross-examination, the defense is asking how much she actually remembers from that night. It is just the beginning of what is expected to be tough questioning. Many times today, the alleged victim, whose face has been obscured by the courtroom camera, broke down under cross-examination by William Smith's attorney.
Was he able, at least according to your testimony, able to maintain an erection?
Why do you have to ask me questions
Would you
like
like
that?
to have a recess? I need to ask you some questions about this. Your Honor requests then we have a recess.
No, I will get through this. This has been a nightmare for me. I want this over.
Your Honor, I request to have a recess.
At other times, she appeared strong and combative.
And this is 12 hours after you say you were raped?
I was raped.
Defense attorney Roy Black attacked the woman for her repeated failure to remember events before and after the alleged rape.
You said you couldn't recall.
I have memory lapses regarding that night because I'd been raped.
He also tried to exploit what he sees as inconsistencies in the woman's testimony. For example, her walk on the beach with Smith before the alleged rape.
Did you ever sit down on the beach?
I don't recall doing that.
Did you ever roll around in the sand?
No.
A forensics expert is expected to testify that he found sand in the woman's underwear. Black also asked the woman about the alleged attack on the Kennedy estate lawn and how violent she says it was.
So you were slammed into the ground twice?
The first time he hit me from behind, and then he,
The first time you were actually running as fast as you can, is that right?
Yes.
And the second time is when you were already on the ground and he slams you back on the ground?
Yes.
Black says a forensic scientist says no grass stains or tears were found on the woman's clothing. But more than anything, Black tried to show that it was impossible for a rape to have occurred as she said. He referred to the woman's statement to police that William Smith was unable to maintain an erection.
Your description of it is that you have your right arm pinned, right? You have your left arm pinned, right?
And my right arm is pinned between his chest and my chest, and his...
pushing down on you?
Yes, sir.
At the same time, he can pull up your dress, he can hold your panties aside, and he can enter you without being able to obtain an erection.
He raped me.
But in later questioning, the prosecutor had the woman explain how she says Smith was physically able to rape her.
Was his erection sufficient for him to enter your body?
Yes.
Is there any doubt in your mind whatsoever that his penis was in your vagina?
No. No.
Senator Kennedy's testimony had been anticipated for months. He was on the witness stand for only 43 minutes. Kennedy described how last Easter weekend, after an emotional family conversation about the recent death of William Smith's father, he had asked Smith and his own son, Patrick Kennedy, to go to a Palm Beach bar.
We went to Obar's. I wish I'd gone for a long walk on the beach instead, but we did go to Obar.
He said his nephew introduced him to the woman who would later accuse Smith of rape.
It was a very brief introduction, maybe it lasted 10 seconds or 15 seconds.
On Wednesday, the alleged victim testified that after she went to the Kennedy estate with William Smith, she saw the senator and Patrick sitting on the back lawn.
While you were at the seawall, sometime after 1:30, did you see either William Smith or the woman that he had introduced you to at the O-Bar?
No, I did not.
The alleged victim claimed that the rape occurred near the house and that she screamed for help.
I was screaming for someone to help me because I'd seen the senator just minutes earlier and assumed that he would come and help or somebody would come and help me.
Did you hear anything at all that night at the Kennedy estate?
No, I did not.
Did you hear any screams?
No, I did not.
On cross-examination, Kennedy seemed to bolster the defense claim that if there were screams, they would have been heard inside the house, which had no air conditioning.
That particular evening, were the windows of your room open?
Yes, I believe they were.
It is unclear what the prosecution hoped to gain by putting Senator Kennedy on the witness stand, but it did give the defense an opportunity to further challenge the woman's account.
After 6 days and 23 witnesses, the prosecution rested its case today in the William Kennedy Smith rape trial, and the defense began its attack on his accuser.
Before resting its case, the prosecution called an expert on grass to the witness stand. Stephen Hatch, an ecology professor, testified that grass particles found in the alleged victim's underwear could have come from the Kennedy estate lawn, where she claims to have been raped by William Smith. But under cross-examination, he said the grass also could have come from the beach area, where the defense says the woman and Smith had sex voluntarily.
I would assume that's possible.
Thank you, Doctor.
The defense began its case this afternoon and right away tried to attack the credibility of the alleged victim, whose dramatic testimony earlier this week was the center of the prosecution's case. The first defense witness was Tony Leot, a Palm Beach bartender, who said he met with the alleged victim earlier on the night she says she was attacked. The woman testified she couldn't remember meeting with Leot. But under cross-examination, Leot helped the prosecution by describing the alleged victim as being decent and shy, unlike the defense characterization of a troubled and angry woman who would fabricate a rape charge.
She's a very nice individual.
I like her very much, she is, yeah.
She's a very quiet girl.
She was never loud.
The trial seems to be moving ahead of schedule and may be completed by the end of next week. Leaving St. Edward's Church in Palm Beach this morning, William Smith indicated for the first time that he wants to take the witness stand in his rape trial.
You want to testify?
Yes. You do? Smith's desire to testify does not mean his lawyers will allow him to do so. Legal experts say it could be advantageous for Smith to counter the dramatic testimony of the alleged victim, but it is a risky maneuver that would expose him to tough questioning by the prosecution. Most of the defense case so far has relied on forensic science, using evidence and expert witnesses to try to tear apart the alleged victim's account. Dr. Henry Lee, a criminologist, said if the alleged victim had been tackled and assaulted on the lawn of the Kennedy estate, as she said, he would have expected to find stains on her clothing, which he did not.
I did not see any obvious blood stain, soil stain, or grass stain.
Dr. Jay Siegel, a professor of forensic science, said sand found in the woman's underwear could not have come from the estate lawn. He said it could have come from the beach, where the defense claims Smith and the alleged victim had sex voluntarily.
Nearly 9 months after he was first accused of rape, William Smith told a jury his version of what happened at the Kennedy family estate last Easter weekend. A very different story from that of the woman who accused him.
On the witness stand, William Smith said it was his accuser who took the initiative and led him on.
I was feeling that I'd gotten picked up.
Were you attracted to?
Yes, I was.
Was she attracted to you, as far as you could tell?
Yes.
After you've been dancing, what happens then?
Well, I remember the bar being clear. I remember the lights came up, and I saw the senator and Patrick leaving, and I turned. Well, yeah, I turned to, and I said, "There goes my ride."
What did she say when you said that to her?
She said, "I'll give you a ride."
Smith said when they arrived at the Kennedy home, it was the woman who suggested they go to the beach. And he said they had 2 sexual encounters, once on the beach and later on the estate lawn.
And we kissed, and I put the towel down in the sand, and we got on the towel and
What happened on the towel?
We started to neck.
And then what happened?
Well, she unbuttoned my pants, and I took her panties off, and with her help, and we embraced, and I could feel her. I put my hands on her, and she was excited, and I asked her if she had any birth control.
What was her response?
She said, "We better be careful."
So what then happened?
She sort of sat up, and I rolled off to the side, and she put her hands on me.
Where did she put her hands?
She put her hands on my penis.
And what did she do?
She massaged me.
And what happened when you got up back on the lawn?
She started pulling playfully at my towel, and we started kissing, and we put the towel down on the lawn, and she took off her panties, and we were necking for a while, and she was massaging me, and I wasn't excited, and she put me inside of her, and we started to, she said to be careful, and we started to have sex.
In both cases, Smith portrayed her as a willing and eager participant until he mistakenly called her by another woman's name.
And I called her Kathy.
And what were you thinking when you said that?
Sorry, I couldn't understand what you said. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I said I called her Kathy.
What did you think when you said that?
Well, the minute I said it, I knew that it was a mistake, and I just hoped that she didn't hear it.
What was her response?
She sort of snapped.
In what way?
She got very, very upset, and she told me to get the hell off of her.
And what did she do?
And she hit me with her hand.
Smith said the woman became very emotional and seemed disoriented, calling him by the name Michael and accusing him of rape. After she left, Smith said he told his cousin, Patrick Kennedy, that he was scared.
I said to Patrick, gosh, this is I just had a really frightening night, and this woman's a real nut. And he said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, she's calling me by the wrong name. She said she'd been at the house before. She asked to see my ID. She said she'd call the police. She's making, big scene.
Will, that night, that early morning, that Saturday morning, did you at any time forcibly rape?
No, I did not.
Then came the cross-examination.
What are you saying, that she raped you, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely not.
The prosecutor's often sarcastic questions did not seem to make much headway in countering Smith's story.
Well, we're all amazed that your animal magnetism just captivated this woman on March 30th, 1991, and she wanted to go home with you, and she rubbed against you, and she wanted to take you home, and she wanted to go swimming with you, all in an hour, Mr. Smith.
I think that's a mischaracterization.
Well, that's what
First of all,
testimony
I was present there. I wasn't entirely passive. I was enjoying her company, and was very happy to be with her. Second of all, I never said anything about my animal magnetism. All I said was that my impression was that she picked me up.
Well, what are you, some kind of sex machine here? So you can get all these...
Sustained.
You think this is a real believable story, Mr. Smith?
Objection is argumentative.
Sustained.
Smith was quick to fight back at the prosecutor's suggestions.
You know you can always count on your family, don't you?
If you're implying that my family is lying to protect me, you're dead wrong.
The prosecutor also had trouble with the judge, who lectured her about unfair questions.
And if you ask one more question along these lines, you will not get away with it.
It's his word against hers. The jury in the William Smith rape trial has heard both versions of the events last Easter at the Kennedy family compound in Palm Beach. Final arguments will be presented today.
The state of Florida in this case has proved each and every material element of the crime of sexual battery under the law in Florida. We've presented evidence to you on each and every material element for age, scientific evidence of penetration, the use of force, and without the consent. She said no, and he didn't care.
We have to follow the law here. The law says it has to be proof beyond a reasonable doubt. There's nothing more important in our Constitution than that. I know I've repeated myself here time and time again on this, but I just can't tell you enough how important it is when you're looking at this case to look to see if there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt, because there is not. When you look at the evidence, the proof is not there. Under that analysis, the law requires that you return a verdict of not guilty.
This is a special report from ABC News.
Hi, Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters in New York. There appears to be a verdict in the William Kennedy Smith trial. Let's go to the Palm Beach County Courthouse in Florida.
I see you with a paper. Are you the foreman of the jury?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you hand that paper, please, to Mr. Grossman? The verdict is in order. The clerk may publish the verdict. There will be no public expression from anyone in this room upon the pronouncement of this verdict. No applause, no boos, no cheering, no response. If I hear one response from anyone in this room, after the courtroom is cleared and the jury leaves, there will be hearings, as many as necessary. Mrs. Allen, you may publish the verdict.
In the Circuit Court of the 15th Judicial Circuit Criminal Division in and for Palm Beach County, Florida, case number 915482 CFA02, the State of Florida versus William Kennedy Smith. We, the jury, finds as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant not guilty. As to count 2, we find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, this 11th day of December, 1991.
Excuse me, Mr. Black.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me.
2 charges, second-degree sexual battery, which was a felony for which he could have received a maximum sentence of 4.5 years as a first offender, not guilty. Second charge of battery, first-degree misdemeanor. He could have got a maximum sentence of 1 year, not guilty.
The jury, having found you not guilty of count 1, sexual battery, and not guilty of count 2, battery, I hereby enter an order adjudicating you not guilty, and I will sign a judgment of acquittal as soon as Mrs. Allen prepares it for me. You may be seated. You are released from all responsibility concerning the case, and your cash bond is discharged.
Now, the jury was out less than 2 hours, actually a little more than an hour and a half, 10 days of testimony, more than 40 witnesses. All of the so-called legal experts said it came down, as it so often does in date or acquaintance rape cases, to the word of the defendant against the accused.
They say that gratitude is the memory of the heart. And I have enough memories in my heart to last a lifetime. I want to say thank you, most of all to my mother. I don't think it's possible for a child ever to repay the debt they owe their parent. I only hope that I can be as good a parent to my children as my mother has been to me. I think that when my Aunt Eunice was here, she wished the people who were watching the gift of family and the gift of family loyalty. It's a gift I've been blessed with, and it's one that I'm very grateful for. And these past 8 months, I felt so blessed by that it's been such a source of strength to me that I just want to say thank you. I want to say thanks to all my friends, to Rick and Dave, to John, to all of my friends who have been there, to Blair, to Kelly, to Jane, to everybody to Kathy, to everyone who supported me. I especially want to thank Roy Black, with whom I've developed an enormous amount of respect and admiration, who has been, for me, a terrific source of judgment and wisdom and perseverance. I want to thank everybody who's helped with my defense. To Robert and Rebecca, to Mark Schnapp and Holly Skolnick, and especially to Kat Bennett, who brought a special spirit and a special love to me, and I think to anyone she touches. And it's a spirit that's transforming and made all the difference for me. I want to thank the jurors and everybody who came and sat to be on the jury in this trial. My life was in their hands, and I'm so grateful for the job and they did and the seriousness with which they took it. And I want to thank Judge Lupo. I'll bet she makes great lasagna. She did a terrific job, and I think she was so impressive to anybody in the seriousness with which she took the trial and the way she conducted and walked the fine line between the media and the judicial system. And that's such a difficult job, and I think she did such a great job with it. So I have an enormous debt to the system, to God, and I have a terrific faith in both of them, and I'm just really, really happy. So see you guys later.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
As we noted on this program last night, the William Kennedy Smith trial was unlikely to break any new legal ground, and indeed it did not. Nevertheless, it was a case that couldn't help but have an impact on public perceptions. By way of illustration, it's worth noting that another rape case, which was being heard just a few doors down from the courtroom in which the Smith case was tried, attracted almost no press attention. 142 reporters were accredited to cover the Smith case. It is not, then, that rape cases per se attract a lot of media coverage. They're far too commonplace for that. But this one, involving a member of the Kennedy family, was read about and listened to and watched all over the world. So the case and the verdict will have an impact.
The charge hit the headlines on April Fool's Day: sexual assault at the Kennedy compound. Within days, the identity of the accused was known. The fact that it was a nephew of Senator Ted Kennedy, a young man with no public identity, was enough to set off the frenzy, including charges that authorities were dragging their feet. What followed was nearly 9 months of rumor, counter-rumor, speculation that at times seemed to turn the world upside down. NBC and the New York Times ran the accuser's name, but the National Enquirer didn't. First one woman, then 2 more, were prepared to testify that Smith had behaved violently toward them. Indeed, many court observers thought the outcome of the trial had been set the day it began, when Judge Mary Lupo blocked such testimony on grounds it would be too prejudicial.
The court denies the state's motion.
The trial that followed was a largely one-sided affair. The prosecution's most convincing moments came with the testimony of the alleged victim, whose face was concealed from the viewing public.
And he slammed me back into the ground, and I got...
Her testimony put a burden on defense counsel Roy Black, who was at pains to show his concern for her emotional state, even as he tried to shake her testimony.
I need to ask you some questions about this. Your Honor requests that we have a recess.
No, I will get through this. This has been a nightmare for me.
But almost every other moment seemed to favor the defense. Senator Kennedy, called by the prosecution for reasons still mysterious, was able to summon a sense of family tragedy around a Good Friday late-night visit to a bar.
I wish I'd gone for a long walk on the beach instead.
William Smith, the defendant, proved a compelling witness as he told of a consensual sexual encounter.
The issue here is I'm innocent. And how do you defend yourself from somebody who says the word rape over and over again?
And Prosecutor Lash's cross-examination seemed at times more petulant than pointed.
What are you saying, that she raped you, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely not.
Today's closing arguments only emphasize the fact that the jury was being forced to choose between two totally different stories, with little to tilt the balance one way or the other.
This isn't a date rape. This is a stranger rape. She didn't know this man. She didn't even have an opportunity to know him.
And you can't find somebody guilty because of the family he comes from.
She said no, and he didn't care.
These are not red, ugly bruises. These are not purplish bruises. These are not recent bruises.
In a country that became surrogate spectators to this trial, sympathy could flow to both principals. Will Smith, now officially cleared of all charges, had his life disrupted for months. His face flashed around the world as an accused rapist, much of his wealth spent to defend himself. The alleged victim was forced to answer questions of the most intimate imaginable nature. Her private life was put, literally, on public display. With her identity well known to the press and to the Palm Beach community, despite the attempts to shield her, it's hard to imagine how her life can easily be put back together.
Prime Time. From New York, Diane Sawyer.
Good evening and welcome to Prime Time. Until now, most of us have known her simply as the accuser. We heard her charge a man with rape. We couldn't react to her face, but the jury saw her. And 1 week ago, William Kennedy Smith was acquitted of all charges against him. The jurors came to their conclusion after only 77 minutes. And now tonight, she's going to speak on camera. After all the things that have been written and said about her, she says it's no coincidence that in her county, the number of rapes reported by women has decreased 40% since she brought charges. She also says she has been offered hundreds of thousands of dollars for her story, but she turned the money down, choosing instead to appear on a news program. No questions were off limits.
The people watching us should know that you made one request of us, which was that after all this time, you be allowed to be the one to say your name, and we're going to respect that. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Why, thank you for giving me that honor. Out of everyone who's used my name, for once it's an honor to say that I am Patricia Bowman. And thanks.
After all this time, after the aggressive effort to protect your privacy, after sitting behind that gray circle everyone saw on television, why are you going on camera now?
I'm not a blue blob. I'm a person. It's my name, and it's me. I'm a human being. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I know that the reporting of rapes has gone down. I'm terrified that victims everywhere have seen my case, and potential victims who have seen my case will not report because of what's happened to me. And that is one of the strongest motivations to, quote, come out, because you can survive.
When then did you make the decision in your own mind that you were going to say your name and let your face be shown?
It was shortly after one of the defense attorneys was going on national TV telling everybody that, she's mentally disturbed. I'm not.
He said they're praying for you?
Yeah. It's quite well known about their PR campaign.
Tell me about it. What do you mean?
Each and every morning, each and every day at noon, each and every day from 5 to 7, and in each and every newspaper, I had to see the face of the man who raped me. That's hard. Then I had to see the face of the man who raped me change into a man with a puppy, a man kissing school children.
But you know what the defense said? They said that there's Willie Smith, feeling the scorch of publicity. His name is out there in public. And they said, of course, that you were hiding behind your anonymity.
He was not raped. I was.
And yet the jury acquitted.
Which doesn't mean I'm not a victim of rape.
But it means that his name has been out there all of this time, attached to an accusation of rape, and now he would argue to you probably he can't get his name back either.
If that man is suffering any repercussions from the past 9 months, he should, in my mind. I don't mean to be vindictive. I'm still terribly frightened of him.
Where were you when you heard the verdict?
It was unbelievable. We walked into one of the state attorney's offices. I'm not sure which one it is. I can remember getting in the room and everybody was telling me to sit down. Sit down, Daddy. Sit down, sit down, sit down. I didn't want to sit down. I was nervous. And I remember just leaning up against this door frame. And I remember the words.
We, the jury, finds as follows. As to count 1, we find the defendant not guilty. As to count 2, we find the defendant not guilty.
Not guilty. And the next thing I remember is they were helping me get up off the floor.
For most of us, until now, Patricia Bowman has been an accuser sketched in the shadows. We knew she was living on a trust fund from her rich Republican stepfather, though she laughs at the idea the rape charge was some kind of political revenge. We knew she was a small woman who had broken her neck as a teenager and defied the doctors by standing up and starting to walk. But there was a paradox, because we also knew the dirt. From the tabloids, papers, magazines, the kind of thing that would never be allowed in court. She had lived in the fast lane, hints of drug use, her abortions. She was sexually abused as a child. We also knew she decided to have a child while unmarried, a daughter born premature with terrifying diseases. She says it was her daughter who changed her, and she talks about her nonstop. Still, it was hard for people to reconcile what they read with the story told by the woman who appeared on the stand, how she put on party clothes, yet said she wasn't looking for a date.
I have heard a number of people say it is simply not credible that she was going to her friend's house to visit with a small child, dressed the way she was dressed, and that it undermined everything else that happened after that because she didn't say what is clear to everybody, they say, on the outside, that she was going out to have a good time.
I hadn't been out in a long time. Not that I was looking for some wild time. I wanted to spend it with my friends. That's what's important to me now, is spending time with friends, not necessarily going out and meeting people.
But I think what they're saying is that if she hadn't presented what was really kind of Betty Crocker approach to the evening, and had gone ahead and said what seems to them to be true, that yes, there was flirting. Yes, it was romantic. Whatever happened later on, but to go ahead and acknowledge those things, because they said it just wasn't credible otherwise.
But see, I didn't feel that. What was she doing out at 3 o'clock in the morning? Well, I'm sorry. I am a human being, whether I'm male or female. I am entitled to the same rights as any other person. And I was out at 3 o'clock in the morning. I didn't know it was 3 o'clock in the morning. Didn't have a watch on. My first clue was when the lights came on. But so was he. You know, but so that I was out at 3 o'clock in the morning, does that mean he has the right to rape me?
Mr. Black has now said on television, you know, we couldn't tell the jury about her one-night stands, about her abortions.
That is my privacy. That has nothing to do with what he did to me that night. His behavior was criminal. I knew that I wasn't promiscuous, that I hadn't worked for an escort service, that I wasn't on drugs that night, and any of the variety of things that they had to say.
Because, you know, again, you keep reading in the paper these stories.
But see,
where are they coming from? You know, that she was a tease, that she was a little wild, the New York Times reported. The New York Times.
Wonderful little piece, yes, the nation's most reputable newspaper, who stands outside a 2-year-old bedroom window.
An article in the New York Times named her name, raised questions about her past, and even gave the titles of the books on her baby's bookshelf.
The only way to see those book titles is to stand right next to the shrubbery, looking in an innocent child's bedroom window. Now that's news that's fit to print from the nation's most respectable newspaper.
Is it possible that you over-reacted to and over-remember what happened that night, because you do have some deep-seated distrust of men based on what you went through.
No, I don't have a deep-seated distrust of men.
You were abused as a child?
Yes. But it has never been a problem for me. Initially, I did what children do. I told a parent, and the parent got me out of there.
Because they do maintain that you were carrying around this instability.
I find it kind of amazing, if I was, that it finally surfaced at the age of 30.
The defense implication was you were a drug user. Cocaine. Do you use cocaine?
No.
Did you?
Previously in my life, as many people have, I did, but I made the conscious decision not to.
How long ago?
I made a strong decision not to years ago. I did a small amount over a year ago, and didn't want to fall back into that, and so I have not used drugs in over a year.
So well before April.
Oh, yeah.
Occasional use? Heavy use?
I'd say occasional use. I've never been treated for a drug problem. I have never been treated for an alcohol problem. I have never been treated for a psychiatric problem. I know that society has a problem with victims because it's hard. It's real hard for people to admit that these crimes happen. It's easy to blame what happened to me, or to try to blame what happened to me on mistakes that I've made in the past that awful lot of other people have made. That has nothing to do with the issue.
As we said, the law agrees. The jury would never hear the things leaked to the press about her, just as William Smith's past conduct was ruled out, which meant it was going to be a test of credibility, his story against hers.
It's incomprehensible for me to live every day of my life knowing how ruthless that man was in attacking me that night, and to hear what he said on that stand.
We're not going to go over every moment in the trial, though there are many details that have stayed in people's minds. For instance, why did she call him Michael? In brief, she says she still doesn't know, but it was part of the trauma. He said it was part of her disorientation. She also says she doesn't know why she hid in the house after the alleged attack instead of running into the street, except fear has no logic. But we turn now to what became of the center of the case. Since there was no evidence of intoxication on either side, it came down to two versions of what happened on the beach that night. William Smith's version was presented for the first time in the courtroom and helped persuade the jury that he had been falsely accused.
I was feeling that I'd gotten picked up, and she rolled over onto me and put her hand on me, and proceeded to massage me. I said to Patrick, "Gosh, this is I just had a really frightening night, and this woman's a real nut."
So you have sex on the beach, and then you go swimming in the ocean, and then you have sex on the lawn, and you go swimming in the pool. That's your testimony?
Yes, it is.
You're saying he just invented all of this? It was
did
very
those things.
detailed.
I never did those things. I saw him start to unbutton his pants. I thought, this is a little, too much for me. I don't really know you. I don't really want to see you with your clothes off. So I turned to leave.
Was there initial sexual interplay on the beach?
We walked down to the beach, and we were talking, and I think he kissed me twice. I didn't feel that they were any invitational kisses. I didn't feel that I was saying, hey, because I didn't feel that way.
Because he said, I think his word was massage on the beach.
That never entered my mind. Did
it happen?
No.
It did not happen?
No.
You hear so many people say, here's what fits the logic. There was something amorous on the beach, and maybe she did or maybe she didn't want to get away from it. but something happened initially. It didn't just spring out of your trying to
know.
climb
I
up the
don't
stairs.
know. We went down to that beach, and I had felt no threats from this man.
He says there were 2 acts of sex, not just one.
There were not. And that's a problem I have. People talk about this as being an act of sex. It's not consensual sex. It was a violent act.
Is it possible that it was something less than you think
No.
and something more than he thought?
I know that man raped me, and I seriously wonder what part of the word no he doesn't understand, and I wonder what part of my trying to fight him off he doesn't understand.
It's not possible that he just saw this as aggressive.
I can't sit and say what he thought. All I can say is what part didn't he understand about my resistance in the plain and simple word no.
And so there they were, each side having its day in court. On her side, the bruises, the doctors who saw her shattered after the alleged attack. And there was Patricia Bowman's shaking, emotional voice.
This has been a nightmare for me. I want this over.
On his side, there was the expert who said William Smith couldn't have raped her if he was only partially aroused. Another expert who said her clothes were undamaged, not even damaged by grass stains. And perhaps most of all, her account had so many puzzling lapses. His was coherent, detailed.
Yes.
It kind of fit every nook and cranny.
One juror said he was more credible than she was. He went on to say that his version was not nearly as contrived as yours.
If I was going to contrive a testimony, don't you think I would have filled in the memory lapses? You think I would have come up with an explanation for that? And I don't have one. I don't know. I can't put it all together, and that's bothered me. I couldn't, and I hear all the criticism, why can't you remember it? And as hard as I've tried to forget then, I tried harder and harder to remember, and there are still points I cannot clearly remember. The pantyhose issue was a big one.
A very big one. A number of the jurors said afterwards.
But I still, to this day, right now sitting here, I have no idea. It would have been very easy for me to say, oh, I did take the pantyhose off in the car, or I took the pantyhose off in the restroom, or I took the pantyhose off anywhere just to provide that information. But I can't lie. I can't say something I don't know is true.
Her prosecutor wanted to introduce an expert who would say rape trauma syndrome often produces strangely spotty memories. But the judge said the prosecution had asked too late.
But Mr. Smith's team has said it was a very selective loss of memory.
I don't understand it. And as I said, all I can testify to, and all I did testify, was the truth, what I know. I couldn't make something up to fit in the gaps. That's not right.
They say, of course, the reason you didn't remember is that there was some kind of pre-sexual interplay in the car, that you were taking off your pantyhose there and your shoes. They said the reason they were all torn.
The sight of those hose really scared me. And I still don't know. I don't know whether I had them on when he attacked me. I don't know.
How could you have had them on? I mean, how would it...
I don't know, but I don't know how they got all those holes in them. And it frightens me. And it's and I don't know. And it's almost emblematic of the violence involved. And that scares me.
What do you mean?
I was so scared. And I'd never seen any of my clothing or whatever. And they showed me those pantyhose in the courtroom. And they're ripped to shreds.
And I called her Kathy.
What was her response?
She sort of snapped.
In what way?
She got very, very upset, and she told me to get the hell off of her.
Mr. Smith's case, again, was in part that he had annoyed and irritated and inflamed you up on the lawn during sex, calling you by the wrong name or just after.
Mr. Smith terrorized me. He raped me.
Did he call you Kathy?
I can't say what he called me on that camera, but it wasn't Kathy.
When he said, shut up.
Mm-hmm.
Shut up, bitch, he said. But he said what upset you so was that he called you by another woman's name.
I don't know any other woman by that name. I couldn't believe.
Did he say Kathy?
The first time I'd ever heard that name in relation to this case was on his testimony.
You're saying it's possible you don't remember?
I remember that assault. I have nightmares about that every night. But I do not recall him ever calling me Kathy.
On the night of a Good Friday night and early the next morning, did you ever hear any screaming outside your window?
No, I did not.
Did you hear any loud noises during the course of the evening?
No, I didn't.
Did you hear any screams?
No, I did not.
Did you hear any noises?
10 people or so in that house? With bedrooms facing onto it that you were, according to him, beneath his mother's bedroom and no one heard anything?
That's hard for me. Do you realize how hard that is for me? You know? I don't understand that. I know what happened to me that night.
You think they heard you scream and they're lying about it?
I don't know. I don't know. How could I know that? It doesn't make any sense to me. I certainly wonder about it, but I can't. I don't know.
You took a lie detector test. Did you take one?
One polygraph and 2 voice stress tests. And I passed all of them. Jury wasn't allowed to hear that.
And as nearly everyone else knows, there was something else the jury wasn't allowed to hear. The depositions of 3 other women who alleged that they too had been subjected to a kind of assault. The judge said their accounts weren't similar enough to Patricia Bowman's to be admitted.
The court denies the state's motion.
I know that these other women who I've never spoken to, I've never met them.
Have they contacted you since the trial?
No. I just know what has been told to me, that they are extremely articulate, intelligent, credible women who have no reason to come forward. They had no reason to come forward. Why? And especially after what the media was doing to me.
Of course, the defense says you always get copycats in cases like this.
Well, or you have a man who's got a pattern of doing criminal behavior.
The issue here is I'm innocent. And how do you defend yourself from somebody who says the word rape?
Patricia Bowman never appeared in the courtroom to respond to William Smith's testimony. She says at first she had decided against rebuttal, but changed her mind and raced toward the courthouse, only to hear that the closing arguments had begun. It was too late.
And the jury acquitted him, yeah. It's frightening. It's frightening.
It took the jurors only 77 minutes, a crushing defeat for the prosecutor.
So much criticism of Maura Lash.
Yeah, that's hard.
Saying she didn't know how to cross-examine.
First of all, I consider myself blessed to have met a brilliant, in my mind, human being who happens to be an attorney by the name of Maura Lash and Ellen Roberts. Those women worked night and day, heart and soul, for this case.
What did she say to you afterwards?
She's a very proud woman. She's also very compassionate. And we both felt bad for each other.
Did she say maybe we shouldn't have tried it?
No, nobody's ever said that. And as I said, that's how I got my dignity back. That's how you get it back, is by prosecuting.
What do you think about television in the courtroom? Was it much worse, holding up your underwear in front of everyone, talking about
I
those
just
things?
found out about that during, over the weekend. Boy, what a degrading thing. I saw people passing around my underwear.
People sold pictures of you?
Mm-hmm.
Sold stories about you?
Sold my telephone number, my addresses, stories, photos.
Someone sold your name for $1,000. Someone who knew you.
Like I said, we learn about humanity. We really learn.
She even learned about the friend who had come to pick her up that night at the house. The friend who should have been her strongest witness.
How much were you paid by a current affair?
$25,000 for the first interview and $15,000 for the second interview.
Why did she sell a story for $40,000 to a TV program?
I don't know. I know on
Did you say, this is going to hurt, this is going to look like a for-profit adventure here?
How can you tell somebody that? And especially, this is a woman who saved my life. I consider she saved my life.
There was a story that someone had phoned in and said that you got part of that money.
No, I didn't.
Will you rule out accepting money?
I can't answer that right now. I'm just so grateful the trial's over. The 8.5 months of this investigators and media stuff is over. Hopefully after this interview, it'll be over, and I can get back to a normal life.
And yet Bowman still has her own lawyers, David Roth and Douglas Duncan, who supported her through the trial and will help her decide whether to file another suit, a civil suit. Though they insist it would never be about money, only justice. In the meantime, she's answering hundreds of letters of support, a lot of them from rape victims as far away as New Zealand. And she says she'll soon begin working as a counselor for victims.
Willie Smith said after the trial that he owes an enormous debt to God and the system.
I'm sure God helped him through his hard times too. That's our loving Lord. The system certainly helped him. Certainly there are some people who don't believe me, that's a given. And there are an awful lot of people who do believe me. The police believe me. The prosecutor believed me. The state attorney believed me. There are millions of people out there who believe me. I believe me.
And so Patricia Bowman goes on with the rest of her life. As we said, William Smith has been acquitted on all charges. And today we received a letter from his attorney saying he considers her repetition of the charges a libel against his client.
This has been a special presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.